Putin can no longer hide the catastrophe in Ukraine from Russians. According to some experts, the war could end as early as this fall. Vladimir Putin can no longer conceal from the Russian population, and especially from the residents of Moscow, that the war against Ukraine has turned into a catastrophe that potentially affects everyone. The author writes that for more than 4 years, the Kremlin has tried to shield Moscow from the consequences of the invasion of Ukraine. In the Russian capital, festivals and mass events continued to be held, and the authorities tried to minimize the sense of war for the Russian middle class and elites. However, the situation began to change after a series of Ukrainian attacks. As the expert notes, even this year's May 9th parade in Moscow was unusually short and lacked heavy equipment due to fears of strikes by Ukrainian drones. O'Brien emphasizes that Ukraine's recent strikes on the Moscow region have demonstrated the vulnerability of the Russian capital and shocked many Muscovites. The narrative that Putin created about the so-called special military operation, which was supposedly not supposed to trouble the Russian elites and middle class, is now completely collapsing, O'Brien writes. The author draws historical parallels with Japan during World War II, when the authorities concealed the scale of problems at the front for a long time, but after losing strategic territories were forced to acknowledge the worsening situation, which led to a change of government. In the analyst's opinion, the Kremlin may also face a moment when it becomes impossible to hide the true state of affairs in the war. The publication notes that Ukrainian forces have significantly improved their long-range strike capabilities, and if drones once manage to break through Moscow's 3-layer air defense, this will inevitably happen again. At the same time, the expert warns that this does not mean Russia's imminent collapse. The Russian army continues to strike Ukrainian cities, and Putin himself is once again hinting at the possibility of nuclear escalation. However, according to the author, the overall dynamics of the war are shifting in Ukraine's favor. Russia has grown weaker. Even without American assistance, Ukraine seems to be getting stronger and increasingly shaping the course of the war to its advantage. The better the Russian people understand this, the worse Putin's position becomes, the expert concludes. At the same time, military observer Vasily Peknew asserts that Putin may soon face a choice between launching a new large-scale mobilization and seeking ways to end the war against Ukraine as early as this autumn. It is quite likely that sooner or later Putin will be forced to announce a mobilization in Russia. I think he will try to postpone this necessity as much as possible until the period of the State Duma elections in Russia. Whether openly or covertly, he still has to maintain his political rating. And mobilization certainly will not contribute to a positive rating for the ruling party. Therefore, they will try to delay this issue until around the autumn period if they continue the war. The other option for them is to sit down at the negotiating table and find a more peace-oriented proposal, he said on air with Espresso. In his opinion, there are currently no signs that Russia's war against Ukraine will end this year. At the same time, the development of events depends on a large number of unpredictable factors and global geopolitical processes. He claims that so far he does not see any signs that the war could end this year. After all, it's a big equation with many unknowns. That is, we can predict the possibility of conflicts arising, but it is impossible to predict how different sides will react, the expert asserts. And what do you think? Do you really believe that the war could end as early as this fall? Write in the comments and we'll read them. Give us a like. See you next time.